Alright, so here we are with our demonstration video for spatial data capture, module number 9. We're building off of module number 8 in which we georeferenced the Codorus State Park map. You'll notice that I've not included the ArcGIS online data that we georeferenced to. I went ahead and took that out just to kind of keep things more on my local drive so things refresh a little bit faster and we don't have that data layer going out online trying to refresh every time we pan, so hopefully things will move a little bit faster. You'll notice over here on the left I have a number of layers that I've already created, so I'll show you how I can create points, lines, and polygons in these different layers over here. And of course this is the raster that we georeferenced earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and just minimize that to kind of clean up the table of contents just a little bit. Now, we do have a couple of toolbars that we're going to use here, and the first one we're going to use, I'm going to go ahead and right click in the gray area here and open up the editor toolbar, and that's going to sort of shove its way in there. You can also pull it off again as with some of the other toolbars, but you could always dock it as well. So I'll just go ahead and dock the editor toolbar right here. I'm also going to use the effects toolbar a little bit later, probably in one of the other videos. So I'm going to leave that there for now, but those are really the only two that we're going to need, and this is really the big one that you're going to be interacting with a lot of these tools. I'm not going to go over all of them in the video, but in chapters 14, 15, and 16, which you'll be practicing creating a geodatabase and working with capturing spatial data and editing spatial data, you'll interact with some of those tools a little bit more. This is just meant to give you a basic overview of some of the editing tools as we create points and polygons, points, lines, and polygons, excuse me. We'll also use ArcCatalog, which I've already got launched over here, the ArcCatalog window within ArcMap, and that's what this button does here. And of course, you can launch ArcCatalog as a standalone module as well, but when you're doing it within ArcMap, it kind of helps to keep everything sort of together. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of put that away for now, and we'll come back to that a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my boat ramp layer, and you can see I've already got it symbolized with a little person sort of floating out on the water there. And you can see where I've already digitized the locations of some of the boat ramps. So if I grab my zoom tool and I get in a little bit tight, and again, this isn't the highest quality raster. You can see my boat ramp here, and I digitize that from the raster into my vector layer, which in this case is going to be shapefiles. So as part of this demo, I'll be showing you how to create a new shapefile, how to digitize into shapefiles. As part of your exercises, you'll be doing similar things, but you'll be doing it within the context of a geodatabase. So in this case, we can see that that icon right there and this icon right here indicate where there are different marina launches or main launches or some sort of boat ramp. So I just digitized a point location for them, and you can see if I open up the attribute table here, I've created a field called boat launch so that I can at least know what what those different features are. If I turn off boat ramps and I turn on phones, we can see that there are some public phone booths around the park. So I'm going to kind of zoom out here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on Codorus JPEG and just zoom to layer, and that's going to zoom me out to the full extent of the park, and you can see my one telephone booth that I digitized there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into another area where I know that there's a phone booth, or at least look for one. Just kind of poking around here. I know that there is another one over here near one of the gates to the park. So I'm just going to kind of zoom into this area. We can see there's a little telephone there. And basically this is an indicator of a park office, so it looks like they're pointing in this direction where you could get to those facilities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the editor tool. I've already turned on the editor toolbar, but I'm going to go ahead and start editing. Now, this is what I like to tell my students is the danger zone. When you start editing, you are basically opening up your data to add in points, lines, polygons, and attributes. But you got to understand that this is where you delete something and you save, it's gone. You want to be very mindful of what you're doing while you're working within the editor toolbar. You don't want to mess up any of your spatial data or its attributes. So once you start editing, you have to understand that you're going to be in an edit session and you have the power to delete and manipulate your data very easily, and you don't want to mess that up. So be mindful when you're using this tool, what I like to call the danger zone. So I'm going to go ahead and start editing, and we are now officially in the danger zone. I'm just going to say OK to this message. I'm not sure if you guys are getting it as part of your trial software license, but you just go ahead and say OK there if you are getting it. And you can see that I have phone booths turned on, so phones wind up here in the Create Features window. So this window comes up. If you ever lose that window, if you ever close it by accident, this is the Create Features window button on the editor toolbar. So you can just click on that and that'll bring that up. So as I turn on layers over here on the left, you can see they become available for editing over on the right in the Create Features window. So I'm going to go ahead and turn those off, the ones that I don't want. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and digitize a new phone booth location. Now before I do that, I want to make sure that I point out that we have your construction tools down here towards the bottom. And a lot of times they get forced down to the bottom of the window. So just grab this horizontal line and sort of just slide it up there. And you'll be able to see what tools are available to you when you click on that feature over here in the Create Features window. So you can see you have two different construction tools. Points are fairly straightforward. You can create a new point, or you can create a point at the end of a line if you have another line shapefile in here that you're building your point off of. Now as I move into the actual map window, into the data view, you can already see the symbol from the phone's layer. So it's basically looking for where I want to place this new phone booth. So this looks like a leader line right here to the location of where these two features actually are. So I'm going to say, I guess the phone booth is going to be right there. And I just left clicked one time, and you can see that it leaves it highlighted in cyan, which means it is a selected feature. I can come over here to the phones layer and go ahead and open up the attribute table, and you can see the one that I originally put in there, and I have a couple fields in there just giving some basic information, what the provider is, whether it's AT&T, Verizon, and whether that phone booth is in service or not. We're using a lot of cell phones these days, so phone booths are used less and less, but so you might see them out there, but they might not be functioning. This one happens to be in service. Again, sort of a demo here, so I don't know whether that phone booth is actually in service or not. So these would be attributes that I could actually manipulate in here and add in. And again, remembering that I'm in an edit session, so I can stop editing here, I can save my edits. When you stop editing, if you haven't saved your edits recently, it will ask you to stop editing, or you can save edits as you go along. In this case, I'm just going to move off and show you before I save anything that you can actually manipulate the attributes in here as well. So I can just double click in this field and just say AT and T, and I'll just say yes, this one is in service as well. So when I hit the enter key there, I have now attributed this point location, and I'm just going to come up here to the clear selected features button and clear that, and you can see how it's added a new feature. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop editing, and I haven't saved my edits, so it asks me to save my edits as I exit that edit session. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. The Create Features window automatically closes, and I have a new phone booth. I'm going to go ahead and zoom to the extents here and turn off the JPEG, and so here's the original one that I already had in there, and then here's the one that I just digitized, and there is no deleting that feature by accident. I can select those two features, but I'm going to hit the delete key, and you can see that I'm not able to delete those because I am not currently in an edit session. So that's really important to remember as you start to use the editor toolbar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the Codorus JPEG back on, and again, that's the raster that we geo-referenced that we're creating these other vector layers from. So we're using that as our source for creating our GIS data. I'm going to go ahead and turn off phone booths here, and I'm going to turn on trails. And you can see that I've already digitized some trails. I'm going to zoom into that area a little bit closer. And I've chosen to make them this thick red line. If I turn off the trails, you can see this dashed line, and you can see sort of a pixely little hiker there that indicates that it is a hiking trail. And I can verify that by zooming over. This raster here happens to have a little legend that tells you that it's a hiking trail. But you also see that there's other kinds of trails. There's a bridle trail, which is meant for horseback riding. So when I zoom back to the extents and I look at the entire map, I'm going to turn on my trails here and zoom into this general area so I can see what I've already digitized. But I can see that that bridle trail, there's several bridle trails throughout the state park here, and I'm going to want to capture that as part of the trail system as well. So what I'm going to want to do is, again, go into an edit session and start editing. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and say OK. You can also say don't show this warning again. And my Create Features window comes up. I'm going to go ahead and pan just a little bit more here. And I'm basically going to show you how to digitize a line. I'm going to start over here at this sort of loop in the trail and zoom in a little bit tighter. And I have my edit tool here. So when I click on that little triangle, if I were to zoom over here to where I originally digitize that trail, I can actually select those features within my edit mode. So that's one section of trail, that's another section of trail. This is a little small section that goes down to the lake, and then another one that I digitized previously. So when I click off of that, it deselects it, but you can also use the Clear Selected Features tool. I'm going to go ahead and open up the attribute table on trails really quick and see that I have nothing in there except for a calculated length, which I can calculate using the Calculate Geometry functionality of ArcGIS within the table. I'm not going to do that now, but what I do want to do is actually add another field in here that is going to tell me what type of trail I have in my data. So you can see that I have both a hiking trail, and let me zoom out just a little bit farther here. Oops, a little too much. So I have a hiking trail, but also the little dotted line is going to be the bridle trail. So I do want to indicate in that one shapefile which one is hiking, which one is bridle. So I am in an edit session, but you'll notice that when I open up the attribute table here and I say add field, it's grayed out. So the idea here is that you can't add new fields to a table that you're currently editing. You can only add new features, and you can manipulate the actual cell values as you're inside the cells, but you can't add a new field. So I actually have to close this out, stop my editing session, and now when I open up the attribute table, I can actually come in here and say add new field. So I'm just going to call this trail underscore type, and I'm going to call it text. And I know that I've got a hiking trail and I've got a bridle trail. Maybe I have a mountain biking trail in there. So I want to make sure that I make the field wide enough to hold the word mountain biking, because I think that's going to be the longest one. Maybe I'll just make it 25 characters wide, and it adds that trail type field in there. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I've already got that work that I had done before with this, and I know that it's a hiking trail, and I do have some more work to do over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate the attributes for those 4 that already exist. I'm just going to right click on the trail type, come over to field calculator, and I'm going to say trail type is equal to, and I know that that is a hiking trail, so I'm going to go ahead and say hiking there. When I say OK, it's going to take a second here to calculate the records, and you can see that I have a hiking trail in there. Now I can symbolize my my lines based on that attribute now. And so right now I'm just showing trails as a single symbol. But if I went in here and chose to show the symbology according to the trail type field, I can add all values, and I can see the only value that I currently have in there is a hiking trail. So I'm just going to go ahead and change the color value there of the hiking trail. And I'll make it that thick red color again and apply it and say OK. But I know that this one over here is going to be a bridle trail, and I don't have any bridle trails digitized just yet, so I'm going to want to digitize that and go ahead and attribute that as the bridle trail. So what I can do is just start editing, and I'm going to select trails, and I'm going to grab my line tool, and it's going to default to the all other values that are not hiking trails. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove that, apply that. And now it's just kind of showing me a generic icon for trails. So when I say line, I'm going to start here, just kind of anywhere along the way, and sort of follow that line. I'm not being super careful here, just for demonstration purposes, but what you're seeing here is me in what's called sketch mode. So I'm creating the vertices that give shape to the line that's representing that trail, and that again is a bridle trail. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just go just a little bit longer. I'm going to cross the road here, and I'm going to say I'm going to stop right here at this facility. And if this feature construction tool ever gets in your way, you can just hit the tab key and it'll move it somewhere else. For now, it's staying out of my way pretty well. So I'm just going to go ahead and say right click, and I'm going to go to finish sketch. Remember that this is sketch mode here, and so if I've completed my digitizing, I want to right click and say finish sketch. Or the other thing you can do is just double click, left double click, and it will finish your sketch as well. So I'll just come down here and say finish sketch, and it goes ahead and puts in that feature. Now it disappears because I'm currently showing trails according to the trail type field, which is hiking. That line is not attributed yet, but it is a feature in the table. So I can come in here and I can say that that is a bridle trail, and I'm going to leave that in the table. And again, it doesn't show up over here because I'm not showing bridle in here as part of the trails. So what I can do is I can come in and say add values, and I can see that bridle is one of them, and I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to make my bridle trail a different color. So I'm going to go to properties for selected symbols. I'll use that same thick line, but I'll change that to say green color here. I'll say apply, and there's my bridle trail that shows up. It doesn't show up very well against my park there, so I'm going to kind of change that to maybe like a darker green, something like that. That's a little bit better. Now, one of the things you can do here within this edit session, I'm going to go ahead and stop editing here because I'm going to save the edits to that trail You can see again my create features goes away. I'm going to quickly show you how to create polygons and interact with some of those tools. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create what are called feature templates, which is going to save a little bit of time with attributing. Instead of having to digitize the entire feature and then go back and attribute it, you can actually attribute it as you go along. But before I go into that, I'm just going to show you how to digitize a basic polygon. You can see that I've got some of my water polygon already created here. So in the next demo, I'm going to go into that, and then I'm going to come back to the trail type. And for now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to send that back to single symbol. And I'll show you how we can use what are called feature templates to actually draw features according to their attributes. So that's going to be in the next demo video, drawing polygons and working with some of the other tools within the editor toolbar, some of the basic tools that you're going to need for project number 1, and also creating feature templates to be able to attribute on the fly.